Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on another week's O-1 workshop. With this week's workshop, we polled the community. They were like mixed responses and what to cover. But I thought we would start with the easiest criteria when it comes to the O-1, which is the judging criteria. So, what we're mainly going to cover today is how UCIS looks at judging, different opportunities that are available for judging, and also, in case one of you would like to share about what your experience has been like finding, securing these opportunities, happy to give feedback on that too. So, it's going to be very focused on the judging criteria for today. We To give an introduction, so Open Atlas is a 501c3 nonprofit. I'm one of the curators there, and by background, I'm an O1 and EB1A recipient. My EB1A journey, it took me 3 attempts over 2.5 years. So I know quite a bit about strengthening your profile or building your profile towards meeting the EB1A benchmark. And our intention with this workshop series and with most of the work that we do in our community is to have as many free resources as possible for each and every one of you, no matter where you are benefited. So if you have any questions and even post this workshop today, you want to continue the discussion, you can feel free to join our Slack group. I just put a link in the chat. It takes us to a Slack group. You can, my only ask is you ask the question publicly, so that way any answer, it benefits the 2,000 other people in the community as well. So without further ado, I have a brief presentation to share. I'll go over it. And my background is from the tech industry, from STEM broadly speaking. So most of this judging is going to be with a STEM lens. That being said, no matter which domain you're from healthcare, finance, architecture, any other domain, the framework through which ESAS looks at judging would apply to you as well. And at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions relative to your domain for judging, happy to answer those as well. So there's a button to share. Okay, I found it. I hope all of you can see my screen. The disclaimer I'll share is I'm no one an EB1A recipient, long journey to get both. So everything I'm sharing today is from my personal experience and also from my experience of helping dozens, if not hundreds of people through their journeys. But it's not legal advice. So in our subsequent workshops, we'll be bringing on board attorneys as well, including former USCIS officers. So stay tuned for our updates. But for the conversation today, it's not legal advice. And for those of you who are not aware of the different O1 criteria, there are 10 criteria for O1. And as per the rules, you need at least 3 out of those 10 in order to secure the visa. And today we're going to be doing a deep dive on the judging criteria. If you're not sure of what the O1 visa is, how it compares to the H1B, who is eligible for it, and how much it costs, how long it takes, we covered that in our previous week's webinar. So the recording should be on YouTube. It should be available in our Slack channel as well. So I'll recommend looking into those. And we'll be coming back to that topic again a month from now. So these are recurring workshops, and our intention is to cover a lot of ground, but give each specific criteria enough attention that it deserves. Now, in terms of judging, what does USCIS mean by judging? So this is very important to understand. What they consider judging is that you have decision-making authority, right? Which means that the judging work that you're doing, it influences your peers in the field. So it influences any kind of award that they get. It influences any kind of selection process for a grant or for resources or even for membership itself into an association. So they look at the decision authority. The other thing that they look at is who are you assessing, right? So it's very important that you're able to assess your peers in the field. So let's say you're in the tech industry. It's not very helpful if, let's say, your hobby is being an artist and you go and be a judge at an arts competition. So having an event in your field, judging your peers is very important. And also the selection criteria behind the judging process. So it wasn't just pay to play. You weren't just, it isn't broad enough that anyone who walks it is being accepted as a judge. So what's also important to consider is that there was a selection process involved, and you were among like a handful of people selected to be a judge. Now, what are other signals that USCIS looks for? So something that they look for is that selection weightage, right? Are you the top 5%, 10% of individuals who were chosen to be a judge? So the overall pool of applicants matters. So if let's say 1,000 people applied to be a judge and you were selected to be one of the 10 judges, that carries a lot of weight for USCIS. So what is that selection percentage? Also, what is the reputation of the organization where you're being a judge? So in tech circles, and especially hackathons, it's a very popular way to accomplish judging. So within hackathons too, you're looking for the top tier hackathons, right? So the ones that are organized at the Ivy Leagues and such. And in terms of what you're assessing to, so while you're as a judge, you'll be submitting screenshots and information on the selection process that you're involved in. So it's important that the judging process tapped into your breadth of expertise and you weren't just checking boxes, rating people on a scale of 1 to 5, what have you. So the judging activity has to be involved as well. Now, what does this mean in practice? Again, a bit more tech heavy here, but happy to share other opportunities as well. So some very strong, but also very accessible judging opportunities are being on review committees. So if you're a reviewer for conferences, and these don't have to be tier one conferences, right? So NeurIPS, they just finished in San Diego, and it's a tier one conference. All three of these are tier one conferences. But you can look for peer-reviewed conferences too. So these could be not tier one, but tier two, tier three as well. As long as you're invited as a reviewer and you're reviewing other people's work, that counts for judging. Another related opportunity is being a reviewer for journals. So what we're seeing right now is being a reviewer for conferences. And conferences are organized on certain timetables. You have the spring season, you have the fall season. That's when the conferences are concentrated. Some happen in the summer too. But journal reviewing is year round. It also depends on the publication frequency of the journal. Some journals publish monthly, others quarterly, some are annual publications. But if they are quarterly and monthly publications, then the journal also has a reviewer board and they take on additional reviewers as needed. So being a reviewer for a journal is a very powerful opportunity as well. And if you're in the tech ecosystem, especially in and around the Bay Area, New York City, and Austin, Boston, other tech spots in the US, could be in the world too, right? So you could be dialing in today from Bangalore. Being a judge for a demo day, having that visibility, having that authority to award prizes to different startups that pitched, that carries a lot of weight. Also, any kind of grants and funding awards. This could, ideally, it's more of a government award, but it could even be a private award. It could even be like a scholarship. So the fact that you're part of that award committee, that granting committee, carries weight. And this is something that we see more rarely, which is people who are part of open source foundations, right? So they have received accolades or recognition for their reviewing work, and that can be leveraged as evidence as well. Now, what's not good judging evidence? Any kind of networking event that you yourself are organizing or is smaller in nature, right? So Eventbrite events, meetup events, participating in discussions in those events, that's typically very weak claims. Another very common type of weak claim that we see is helping founders, right? So if you are helping a founder, it has to be more structured, more visible, more impactful, as in there has to be paper that you're on the advisory board. There also has to be information exchanged via email, and typically there's a letter of recommendation from the founder as well. The founder has updated their website with your name and bio. So all of those are tangible ways in which we can show that you're impacting them. But just having conversations with founders, you could say office hours, happy hours, that just doesn't count, right? And a lot of times people spend hours and hours. They get themselves on top mate. They get themselves on ADP list. They are giving their precious time as feedback, thinking it would count towards the judging criteria. And unfortunately, it doesn't. So we need something more robust, more tangible. And finally, anything done internally at the company often doesn't count. The exceptions are, it depends on the scale of the company. Of course, if you're at a place like Amazon or Microsoft and you're reviewing the code of hundreds, if not thousands of engineers, there are certain rules with that level of importance and visibility. Those would be the exceptions. But for the large part, if you're just doing internal code reviews, internal, even hiring reviews, you're giving feedback as part of a hiring committee, that doesn't count. So officers, they just view this as you just fulfilling your job responsibilities. So it's not you judging the work of your peers in the field. And I'll take a quick pause here. What I'll say is, in case any of you have any questions as I'm presenting these slides, please use the chat function to share your questions. So at the end of the presentation, we'll take them in the order that we received it. And if you already see a question that someone else is posting, please upvote it. So we know that's a very important question and we'll get to that first. So there is no such thing as a silly question. So please ask away. And what's the other aspects that USAIS uses? So there are two tests that they use. One is the authority test, and the other is the independence test. In the independence test, we kind of covered already, which is, are you doing this judging as part of your regular work, or are you acting in more of an independent capacity? The authority test is different altogether, which is they look at what the selection process of the opportunity was like, which is where was the applicant chosen based on their experience, or was the event just open to the broader public? Now, in terms of the actual judging process itself, how comprehensive was it? Is it just people, on a scale of 1 to 5, ranking, just filling in, coloring in bubbles or checking boxes? Or was there a comprehensive evaluation done for each and every submission? And also, what was the ultimate outcome of the judging process? So, did it have an impact on the event itself? So, this is what's commonly referred to as an authority test. And it's a good question to ask yourself as well. So, before you undertake any judging opportunity, so you want to ask yourself, hey, can I position this as a selective opportunity? Is my work meaningful and impactful enough? And is the judging process itself comprehensive, right? So is it perhaps asking input on like a variety of topics versus a very, very simple review? And the important, the other question that you might have is, how do I show all of this, right? I'll kind of tell you the ideal way to do it and then the practical way to do it and what my experience was as well. Ideally, we have an invitation email from the organization that outlines the selection process and why you're selected. And then we have information about the event itself. So the prestige of the event, who the other judges are, who is being judged. So the audience, the participation, and what the judging process entails. We have proof that you actually did the judging. So it could be screenshots, it could be email back and forth, it could be Slack messages, forms, reports, similar evidence. And finally, we have a thank you email that captures, hey, your submissions, it had this impact on the event, and we thank you for taking the time to participate. So this is ideally all the information that we want to capture. But what practically happens is many pieces of this are missing. And also, in my case, I was a judge at a hackathon for high school students. So they did have a selection process, but it was on the phone. Then they didn't even have a website when I was being a judge. And the thank you email, it wasn't an email. So they sent a mail. So they sent a gift card in the mail. It's like a small note scribbled on it. And then I went to but this was a high school hackathon by MIT, right? So I knew it was prestigious. But then with the attorney, I was like, hey, there's so many gaps with the evidence here. How do we present it? Then they're like, okay, just gather whatever you have. So we gathered WhatsApp communication, text communication, some email communication that was that. I had pictures of me at the event. So thankfully, they had a photo album with that. And finally, we kind of got this all tied together with a letter of recommendation. So that was from the hackathon organizer, and that covered all of these missing pieces. So the selection criteria, the invitation, the impact, the prestige of the events, it covered all of that ground. It was a 2 to 3 page letter of recommendation that the attorney, the paralegals drafted, and I got it signed. So we were able to leverage this event as evidence. And that's practically what ends up happening. So if you don't have the awareness that you have to record all of this evidence, then gaps appear. And the way you kind of plug the gaps later is by just having a comprehensive recommendation letter that covers these essential pieces. But now that all of you are aware, hopefully you'll be able to set it up the right way. So even before you engage the opportunity, you'll ask them for a formal invitation email. After it, you'll ask them for a formal confirmation email, and you'll do your best to just capture as much of the event and your participation as possible. So we kind of covered these key points already. Now, the common pushback that we receive for the judging criteria, and this is something I had not for my O1, but for my EB1A, is one of the common pushbacks we get is your role was merely advisory or honorary, right? So your role didn't have real substance. You weren't actually involved in the judging process. And the way you respond to that is you get a letter of recommendation and you outline your responsibilities in a lot of detail. And maybe you already submitted that to begin with. So sometimes the RFEs are issued because the officer even hasn't gone through all of the evidence. So you just redirect them to the evidence that you already had. But if you haven't submitted that, then the recommendation letter is a good pushback against that claim. And the other is the event was internal, right? So we see this with a lot of big company events. I mean, Amazon sponsors so many hackathons, Microsoft similarly sponsors so many hackathons. And the fact that you're an Amazon employee or Microsoft employee, it shouldn't hold you back from pursuing those opportunities, right? Those departments, divisions, they very rarely talk to each other. And any accelerator, let's say the Alexa team has, the supply chain team has no relation to it whatsoever. But this is a pushback that we have sometimes seen is, hey, the event happened within your same organization. So this requires further explanation that this was an independent event and it had nothing to do with the applicant's job role and duties. And most of most of the time, the pushback for judging, it's related to, has the applicant really evaluated? I mean, has the applicant been really involved in the judging process or not? And has the applicant acted in that independent capacity where they've evaluated the work of their peers? So having the right documentation, and especially having like a letter of recommendation from an organizer, it helps get ourselves ahead of any of these potential RFEs. So those are the main points I wanted to cover today when it comes to judging. And I'll take a pause here for any questions that you folks might have. And time permitting, I could also share with you how to tap into judging opportunities, right? So let's say you're starting from ground zero today. How do you go about securing judging opportunities? So we have some questions in the chat. Rutuj asks, does being a speaker at an event or conference count? That's a great question. It does, but not for, I mean, primarily not for this criteria. So it really does help to show that in certain cases, let's say it's an IEEE conference, it's that you're exhibiting scholarly work, right? Or you're presenting scholarly work in your field. It's another criteria that we'll cover in our next week's workshop. It also really helps with final merits. So to answer your question, being a speaker is very rarely counted in the judging criteria. Moving on, Rebecca asked, does judging the Stevie Awards count? So I know you mentioned one or two subcategories there, Rebecca. Yes. So some of the most common awards to judge. So if you folks haven't already applied, I would strongly encourage you to apply to be a judge at these awards. One is Globee, another is Stevie. Brandon Hall is another very popular award. And then there's one or two more. So in our community, in our Slack group, we have a list of almost 70 to 100 of these awards. These two to three come top of mind. But to answer your question, yes, being a judge at the Stevie Awards count. And Stevie, Globee, they have kind of nailed this down to a science. So they have everything that I've shared you: invitation email, acknowledgement email, proof that you actually did the work. They have like a page, an entire directory of resources that you can use for evidence when you're working with the attorneys for your O-1. So that's a great question. Just not Stevie Awards, but there are several other awards too. The two to three that come top of mind I just shared. But our Slack group has about 100 of them. So there's an Excel sheet with a lot of awards we have gathered. And it should be available in the resources channel. So that's where I would direct you. Aquila asked, what if this was based on applications and I don't have emails for peer review for conferences? They don't publish details on how many you apply. So unfortunately, this is a challenge with any criteria, not just the judging criteria, is doing the work is just one part of telling a compelling narrative. The other part of that narrative is documentation, is actually proving that you did the work. So if you don't have emails, the following question to ask is, do you have text messages, WhatsApp messages? Do you have screenshots from, because typically for a peer review, you get invited to a portal to do the review. So do you have any screenshots from the portal itself? Or ideally you have some, if not all of this evidence. At the very minimum, can we get a letter of recommendation from someone at the organizer, just confirming that you were indeed selected and you reviewed 5-10 presentations or whatever the case may be. So when you work with the attorney, they'll kind of push for as much of this as possible. And I hope that answered your question. They just asked, does judging university hackathons count? So in terms of university hackathons, this is like a very rough rule of thumb that to follow. And the rough rule of thumb to follow is looking at the prize money. So if there's roughly $30,000 in prize money, then it's for what it's worth. It's like a prestigious event because they're typically industry sponsors involved. And this is actually a good segue. I'll take like 3 to 5 minutes and share with you kind of how to approach this from, let's say you're starting to do judging today, or if I was starting to do judging today, how would I approach this? So I'll share my screen. And for those of you who have any other questions that are not related to hackathons, please feel free to put them in the chat. So hopefully all of you can see my screen. And DevPost is a great repository of different hackathons that are happening. And this is kind of a live example. So this is how I would go about doing it. So what you want to find are hackathons that have a pretty significant prize money, right? So let me just check this as an example. Okay, that's $50,000 in prize money. So a rule of thumb, it should be a prestigious event. Let me go down and see who are the sponsors. Okay, it's not available here. Probably it's available in the website. And there's one other key insight here. But let me quickly find the hackathon website. If it's organized by okay, learn more. So if it's typically organized by DevPost, then this is the place where the hackathon is conducted. So there wouldn't be a separate website available for it. Okay, this is making my browser freeze. And this is being hard to find as well. I'll find another example to quickly walk you guys through. But the insight here is look at how, for lack of better words, limited the judging panel is. There are maybe like two, three, four judges, and you'll be surprised. So for many of these hackathons, they actually, I mean, it's volunteer run or it's student run. They have a very hard time coming up with judges for the event. So it's only a matter of like reaching out. It's like putting your hat in the ring, so to speak, and you'd be able to get yourself selected as a judge. And it's happened with us like multiple times. So there's been situations when Princeton Princeton organized hackathons, Yale organized hackathons, and there were maybe one or two judges. We kind of shared that in our community. And before we know it, we actually had capacity for 10, 15 judges. And it was all people from our community. It's just that no one who was in that Yale Hackathon network was aware that they were looking for judges. And it was only a matter of reaching out to say. But let me find out. Let me go to like one or two links. I don't take too much time doing this. Okay. This is a great example of a hackathon not to reach out to is just looking at the prize pool. So very limited prize pool, probably not worth our time to go. So to answer one of the questions in the chat, do university hackathons count? Yes and no. A better judge would be what is the prize pool looking like? So if the prize pool is over 30,000, then generally it's a prestigious event and that will help us with the evidence, the judging evidence. Actually, this is a great example. Now, it's by Tableau, well-known organization, pretty large prize pool. Now let's go down to judges. Okay, there's quite a few judges, but I'm sure, there's very clear judging criteria. And there's like a list of rules. But the best part here, and the best part about DevPost, is you actually have the organizer's email, right? So let me keep this super simple from a prompting perspective. There's an actual person that you can reach out to. Okay, it went. I guess I have a different background now, but you guys get the idea. It will be customized to your background. I spend way too much of my time now on the EB5 side of things. But Perplexity or any other tool for that matter, it'll look your background up and you can send a very personalized email to the hackathon organizer. And the key is not reaching out. So the key is you want to follow up once or twice. So the best time to send it is from 9 to 5 Eastern Pacific, whichever time zone the person you're reaching out to is in. And then you can schedule the send. So you can schedule the send. You can also schedule one or two follow-ups if people haven't responded to you. And once you have this framework that I outlined, which is you have a repository where you find hackathons, you have a rough selection criteria of which opportunity to look for. Then you have the email of the organizer. Then there's a way for you to send a very personalized cold email as well and follow up with them. Once you have done this motion once or twice, then it just becomes a numbers game. So roughly, if you reach out to 20 to 25 opportunities, you tend to hear back from half of them. So you'll receive 10 to 15 responses and you'll at least secure five, right? So we have never seen the numbers go wrong per se. And this is just for hackathons. So beyond hackathons, we kind of discussed awards, we discussed conference review opportunities. There are other opportunities as well. So you can build a holistic judging profile with these different opportunities. I see there are one to two more questions. Abhishek asked, does publishing a book add to the O-1 criteria? Yes, it does, but not to the judging criteria. So we'll be covering publishing scholarly articles in another workshop, and we'll be doing a deep dive there similarly. So lots of examples, what USCIS looks for, what are the RFEs that we see there. So I would recommend holding on to your question till that workshop. And we poll people in the community as to which topic to cover in the next workshop. So if the majority of you want us to cover publishing in the next workshop, so please reply to the poll over the weekend. Awesome. I'll actually ask one of the participants here to unmute. Hello again, Vishal.
Hey, Nikin, how's it going?
Going great. I mentioned Vishal's been a regular attendee of our different workshops, and I told him I'd bring him up on the virtual stage and walk through his case and help with identifying different judging opportunities. So if you're still down to do that, Vishal, Akila asked a question, so I'll just answer her question and we can come to you. Akila asked, what are the requirements for making screenshots legally valid? It's actually a very good question, and it goes back or it ties to a more important question, which is what counts as evidence, right? So what's important to understand is nothing is submitted digitally to USCIS. So it's a pretty archaic system where you print everything out, which means that along with all the exhibits, appendixes, an average O1 petition becomes 300 pages. And sometimes that could be even up to 800 pages. You physically ship it to USCIS, and the craziness doesn't stop there. So USCIS itself doesn't collect your full petition. It's collected by JP Morgan. So they run all of the lockbox facilities, and a representative scans each and every page. And that scanned copy is then sent to the adjudicator. Now, why am I explaining all of this? Because it's important to understand that not just the evidence has to be clear to begin with, it has to be clear and legible when it's printed out and shipped to USCIS and when it's rescanned as well. So sometimes applicants receive RFEs saying that, hey, the signature or whatever was submitted isn't legible. And this is like reality, right? So no one knows, the attorney applicant, no one knows where was the mistake. But coming back to your point, what counts as evidence. So it's very important that, especially when you're talking about screenshots, there's you're doing a print to PDF. And let me share my screen again and walk through like a live example. And let's say I was a judge at this hackathon and I want to use this as proof. Yeah, neck and neck, close enough, right? So, how do I capture this evidence? So, the way to do it is okay, let's just give it 20, 30 seconds. Is you print to PDF, and therein comes like the first issue, which is sometimes the formatting isn't ideal. It makes it just very hard to read. So maybe there's some adjustment to be done here with the margin. And not to digress from our main topic too much, there are probably some adjustments to done here with the settings. But the main setting you want to enable are the headers and footers. Because for it to be accepted as evidence, USCIS wants to see the date and time and a full link to the original source, right? So having that HTTP, forgive my PC, it's not behaving properly. So having that full HTTPS link is important. And the mistake that we sometimes see applicants make is they don't have the headers and footers enabled. So it's blank or it's saved locally to their PC. So that's another mistake because let's say I somehow downloaded this and then I'm printing to PDF, then it would appear as C, like whichever drive or folder I stored this particular file in. So this is kind of the best way to do it. So whenever even an attorney says, hey, you have to take a screenshot of your work, this is what they are referring to. Some of them are experienced enough where they actually share a how-to guide with this best practice. Others are like, they don't even let the applicants do this. They like, give us the link and we will kind of capture this in the right way. But as and when possible, if you're spending a year, 2 years profile building, many times conference websites, they update their set of speakers. So the evidence might not be around by the time you're ready to submit your petition. So the best practice to follow is what I just screenshot and showed you right now. Print to PDF, headers and footers enable, and make sure the link to the original source, the HTTPS link, is visible. So Akila, that's hopefully that answered your question. Hello again, Vishal. If anyone has any other questions, please share them in the chat. Sorry for muting you, Vishal.
Oh, no worries at all.
Awesome. Any questions you have top of mind?
Actually, so I am looking at dev posts, right? But I don't know why. Is there a particular way that I can specify a location? Because I can see online and in person as the setting, but I can't specify the particular city I'm looking for.
I mean, those are filters and settings that should be available in dev post. So that's something
Okay.
I'll let
Yeah,
you
I
figure
might
out
just have
easily.
to look around a little bit more.
Okay. I think what would be helpful for everyone here is if you're briefly able to just share your background, um, professional background, and also if you have been pursuing any judging activities. And again, I can put myself in your shoes. And if I was like starting to profile build for judging, just walk you through how I would approach this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, quick overview. on my background. I've been working full time now for the past 4.5 years. Before that, I did my undergrad actually in business, like entrepreneurship and corporate innovation, with a business analytics co-major, and then I pursued my business analytics master's program. So it was focused in machine learning and data science. That was at ASU. Undergrad was at Indiana University. And then following suit, I joined full time with Albertsons Companies, where I've been working as RPA analyst, but mostly like developer. So the title comes as analyst, but role is developer. So I've been doing that, a lot of RPA and Power Platform, and now for the past year, doing AI development work. So the whole kind of O-1 process is pretty new to me. I only found out about it maybe like a month or two ago, so it's still fairly new. I haven't yet begun actually applying for any sort of judging or anything like that yet. So this is ground zero for me, as you were mentioning earlier.
Okay. So what I would, again, just to summarize, background in analytics business, but in terms of work experience, it's been more focused on automation, like robotic process automation, RPA, and more recently AI. Did I capture that correctly?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, RPA and digital process automation and AI automation. So, yep.
Okay. I mean, that's broad enough. So, which means that you can broadly look for opportunities, like judging opportunities in tech, because almost any opportunity relevant today would have one of these components, right? So
Mhm.
it would be, excuse me, AI oriented, or AI would be one of the topics that
Right.
would be part of the overall event, even if it's in retail or another relevant sector. So, in terms of, let me share my screen again. So, what I would quickly walk through is I'll keep the dev post tab open because hackathons are such an important part of profile building for judging, especially in tech. And again, there are several different search criteria here. And also, you can search by location keywords. So you can try for in person events as well. And this is just one hackathon forum, right? So there's another that's more university oriented, and you can argue easier to access and get into, which would be MLH. So with MLH as well, there are dozens of opportunities that are coming up. And here it's much easier to even identify the organizer. So let me just look up Crow's Hacks. It takes us directly to the website. And the organizer's email is typically around the footer somewhere. So yeah, you should be able to mail to contact@crowshacks.com. And if you look them up on LinkedIn, you might find the actual organizer or two. So these student ones, the organizers, the opportunities are much more accessible. But I'll park hackathons for just a moment. Something that one of the other attendees asked are award competitions, right? So the most popular award competition would be the Globee Award. And again, in terms of the Globee Award, they have several awards that are happening throughout the year. So every few months, they have an award. And in terms of the judging process, too, I mean, their website could improve their navigation. So I just want to find the direct link. So let me go there. And all the pages I'm sharing, this is something that even they realize is helpful for O1 and EB1A, which is why if you look at the way it's laid out, it's exactly what an attorney would require for your petition. And they have a very simple login process. So you can log in and apply to be a judge. I'm trying to find out exactly. So they have like different sign up links. So you could go ahead and do that. So as far as awards go, Globy, they have a lot of awards. So they accept a lot of judges. And the judging process is very robust too. So whichever ones are aligned with your field, so artificial intelligence, of course, business, innovation, technology. So there are several categories which are aligned with your field. I would encourage you to apply. And this is not the only awards, right? So there's Stevie, Brandon Hall, a few others as well. So overall, we
So
have.
Nikin, right here, real quick, would you recommend that we apply to a few of these, whichever is applicable to us, and then kind of figure out which ones like we get accepted for and go from there,
Exactly.
or does it kind of look poorly to like apply for a whole bunch in the same
No, no,
organization?
it's a numbers game to begin with, right? So
Okay,
let's say they're already oversubscribed for one of these awards, they're not going to be able to accept you as a judge. So you just want to be in the queue for the next available opportunity.
got it.
So you just want to apply for as many of the relevant ones as possible. So pretty straightforward process is what I mean to say, right? Whether it's reaching out, securing hackathons, reaching out, securing awards. The one that's more challenging are peer reviews. So the key here is I need to check if my account is active, but I'll kind of just lay out the broad framework. So what's interesting is every conference around the world, they use the same conference management toolkit. It's basically like, hey, if you're a presenter, log in here. We'll send you the Teams link. If you're the organizer, here's like a portal for you to manage all the presenters, etc., etc. And it's run by Microsoft. So it's my CMT. And what Microsoft also realized is this is a very valuable networking tool for scholars to be able to connect with each other. So the key here is if you want to, okay, I might have to register a new account. I'm not going to go through that process now. Each of you can do this async. So the key here is if you're able to go and create an account in CMT, you'll be able to see a list of hundreds of conferences, and probably a dozen or so would be coming up in your field in the next few months. And it's the same strategy as the hackathon. But here, any conference that listed is kind of high quality by default because it just takes a lot to organize an industry or academic conference. And the cold emailing template is slightly different because here you're reaching out to someone who's a professor, tenured professor, 20, 30 years of experience. And the way you do that is let me kind of open a new tab. We're going to, great. It just, I, I spent like a decade in tech. I don't know why it says I'm an immigration consultant, but not to digress. The way you want to just lay it out is that, hey, I'm from industry. I have a lot of experience. I know perhaps this is an academic conference, but I want to contribute my industry experience to this conference, right? And this is something if, especially a conference is academic in nature, this perspective is something that they lack, and especially from a judging standpoint. So, in terms of another set of opportunities available, like especially for peer reviews, it would be through this portal, right? And that's how I would approach it. So just to kind of take a step back and summarize, I would look at three different types of opportunities: hackathons, awards, conference peer reviews. And I would have a cold email template customized to my background, just saying that, hey, I want to contribute my experience, I want to volunteer my time, I want to give back to the tech community, and I would reach out. Again, when it comes to awards, Globy has a very structured process of doing this. But the hackathons as well as the conferences, it's more unstructured. So we just have to play the numbers game, so to speak. So I'll take a pause there. Is that helpful, Vishal?
This was very, very helpful. So quick question on just all these applications in general, right? So what's a good number to target per week for how many we should be applying to in a week to just like start making sure we're getting some sort of opportunities? And what is that timeline supposed to look like for us?
Honestly, judging is the easiest criteria to accomplish. So
Okay,
I would just aim for five, 3 to 5 total opportunities. So it can be knocked off in a few months. Like by March, this should be taken care of. Or
gotcha.
latest, let's say you're taking a break, you don't, I mean, you're just not focusing on this as much, then even in that case, it shouldn't take longer than June. And the reason I say that is there's that many opportunities available in each of these verticals. So we're looking at hackathons, awards, and conferences. So it's only a matter of reaching out and securing the relevant ones.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And
And
kind of a
USCI is like,
follow-up.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
please go.
sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
I was also saying that USCI also accepts different kinds of evidence, right? So if we are just documenting it in the right way, as I shared earlier in the presentation, then that's acceptable as evidence to USCIS. So what I meant to say is they're not they're very open-minded about judging as a criteria. So you might come a month from now in our next judging workshop and be like, hey, Nick, and there was a startup pitch competition that I was invited to judge, or like the Rice business plan competition that I was a judge at. Does that count? And it does. So that's what I mean by the
Gotcha.
different similar types of opportunities that count as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And kind of following up on that, is there a preference for doing in-person judging opportunities over online, or is it kind of like the same thing?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm very lazy. So, and it's very cold outside. I'm in New Jersey right. So I would personally prefer doing things online. And USCS doesn't care. So that's the most
Okay.
important. They just care about the other aspects, that what's the prestige of the event, the selection criteria, did you actually participate? That's what they care about, right? Not that if you showed up in person.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was any weightage in this whole authority test on like, okay, it actually being in person is more is a authority figure, but I guess that's not the case, which is good to hear.
Actually, I'll tell you where it's helpful is if, I mean, for example, if it's Stanford, right? So you want to go there in person mainly to see if the organizer has other opportunities available. So you're
Yeah,
going there more to build a relationship, and that's best
right.
done in person. But I wouldn't, like, let's say there's a hackathon in Toronto, then I wouldn't go to Toronto necessarily, right? But so it depends on the prestige of the event too. But Tree Hacks at Stanford, Yale, I mean, these kind of events, or Alexa is organizing something, it's worth going to because likely the organizer is doing other events, or there are people there organizing similar events. So you can develop relationships and get yourself invited to the next ones.
Yeah, makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vishal, for volunteering.
Of course. Thank you, Nikin, for all your insights. It's been super helpful.
Any other questions? If you folks have questions, you can feel free to raise your hands so I can just unmute you directly. Awesome then. Going once, going twice. So what I'd encourage all of you to do is join our Slack community. So it's the openatlas.org/Nikin. We have a channel where we are supporting each other for profile building. It's the talent visas channel. So any questions you have from this webinar, I would encourage you to ask it there. And in terms of the next week's webinar, we'll be posting a poll on the channel. So we'll learn from all of you on what to cover. And similarly, we'll go over that criteria in a lot of detail. Something that I also encourage you to do for those of you who are interested is just forming like accountability groups, right? So you can even keep this call as such a group. So we're like, hey, Nick, can enable a breakout room. I'm working on a paper with 2, 3 people here, or I've formed like a smaller group of friends I just want to touch base with because we already have this time carved out. Well and good. So what I mean to say is if there is any support you need from our side in order to just make this workshop experience more impactful and meaningful, please let us know. Our intention is to do this on a weekly basis, cover topics in a lot of depth, bring on other experts and speakers as well, and keep it free, right? So that way we're able to spread the message far and wide. And Rutuja, you've been raising your hand, so I want to make sure we answer your question too.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for all the details about today's topic. It was very insightful. I attended the last week's session also. My question is like maybe not related to this criteria, but I had authored a paper and it's published in IEEE back in 2019. So I was curious to know whether that can be counted as any of the evidence because it's like 2019 and yeah, it was
Yeah.
from it.
So is it the clarifying questions I would ask is it in your field?
Yes, and yeah, it is related to my field.
Does it have any citations?
Yeah, but it has only 8 citations.
Okay. I mean, if it has more, well, who has it been cited by?
I'm not sure, but all of those journals, I mean, it's there on Google Scholar, the citations as well. Other papers, like yeah,
Okay.
8 other
It
papers.
can it can be used in one or two criteria. So one is in
Mm-hmm.
the published articles, scholarly articles criteria. And
Oh,
then based on the citations, I mean, if the citation count is very high, then
yeah.
attorneys would use it in original contributions to the field because
Mhm.
that's a objective metric to show that.
Right.
But also, another way to show that is based on who cited it. So let's say
Oh.
it's like a Harvard professor, Carnegie, whatever the case may be. If
Mhm.
it's someone prestigious, even if there's one citation from
Right.
one of their papers, that's something that can be leveraged, right? But the gap to fill that would be to get a letter from them saying that,
Oh,
hey, this Rutuja's work really influenced me, which is why I chose to cite it.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I never thought about it. Thank you. I'll check over that. I don't have that information, but surely worth considering. Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate you asking that question. Appreciate all of you for taking the time. Have a great week ahead and hope to see all of you in our next week's workshop.